Okay, folks, time for some more tough love. And I've gone over this before. I know some people probably think you're beating a dead horse, but this is very important. And marriage is important to these progressives because how long did we hear them whine about homosexual marriage? Well, Hillary Clinton and Obama were against it, and they would whine about all the Republicans who were bigots. And yet, Hillary Clinton won 2 Senate elections, and Oboingo won 2 POTUS elections, not being bigots. So it's important to them. So part of the reason I'm doing this is there are a lot of progressives, a lot of functionally retarded mouth breathing progressives who ridicule southern states as country bumpkins, white country bumpkins, of course, that chew tobacco, read the Bible, drink beer, have no teeth, and drive rusted out pickup trucks. Stereotyping them that way. Well, in a lot of southern states, as you'll find out, there's a high out-of-wedlock birth rate, but it's not necessarily the white people. So there you have your data going across your screen. The U.S. average for all races, U.S. average Hispanic, white, and black. Go look at the links. I have all the links underneath the video where you can go peruse this. This isn't like one of Stan Cedars' videos where you pull information out of Rachel Mandow's rear end and then plunk it down and with no sources because it came out of Rachel Mandow's rear end. Arkansas average, all races. I tried to get states that were... I didn't calculate a standard deviation. Sorry, I just tried to get states that were near the 45% mark since the national average was 40... What was it exactly? 40.36% for the time period 2010 through 2017. Arkansas average, all races, 44.9%. Arkansas black, almost 80%. Arkansas Hispanic, just over 50%. Arkansas white, 34.7%. I've got the exact, I'm just rounding this as I go. Delaware average. Delaware, now there's a progressive state full of a whole bunch of white people. Bunch of stupid white people. Delaware average, all races, 47.2%. Delaware black. So Delaware is that's a progressive state full of white people, way above the national average. Delaware black, 71.1%. Delaware Hispanic, 62.5%. Delaware white, 35.45%. Sure are a lot of dumb, stupid, idiotic white privilege going around Delaware, where over a third of all the white kids are born out of wedlock. And again, if you have a kid out of wedlock, I'm not saying you're doomed. But it's not my fault. Women, you are the gatekeepers of sex. Please be responsible. Choose the guys you go to bed with wisely and make sure you know them for maybe more than a couple weeks. Not my fault. Georgia average, all races, 2010 through 2017, 45.3%. So Georgia, there's a state full of a bunch of stupid southern white people, hillbillies, no teeth, drive rusted out pickup trucks, old campers, read the Bible, spit, chew, drink beer. Dumb, stupid white people. 45.3%. Georgia black, 70.375%. Atlanta. Yeah, that's all I got to say. Atlanta's another city not disintegrating nearly as bad as Detroit or Baltimore or Chicago or St. Louis or Cleveland or East St. Louis, but it's not. There's some neighborhoods in Atlanta that are nasty. Georgia Hispanic, 50.8%. Georgia white, 27.9%. Gee, wonder what the problem is in Georgia. Louisiana average, all races, 52.83%. Holy moly. You wonder why a lot of people in Louisiana are poor. If you drop out of school, have a kid out of wedlock from a baby daddy who has no job and only knows how to do drugs and is going to be a rapper, guess what? Your life's going to suck. I'm sorry. The family should take care of that. That's not my fault. Back in the 50s, the family would take care of that. And I know people make mistakes. This is an epidemic. This isn't a mistake. People make mistakes. This is getting out of hand. And Bernie Sanders is there to feel your pain. He just needs the have-nots to outnumber the haves and get enough of the haves to vote to give their money to the have-nots. Louisiana black, almost 80%. Do you wonder why a lot of black people in Louisiana are really poor? I wonder why. especially the failing, and some states are better than others, but the public school system, especially like out in California, is really bad. Louisiana Hispanic, 55.5%. Louisiana White, 34.66%. I already covered New Mexico in a previous video. See, ever wonder why New Mexico is a mess? But I put New Mexico up there because they're above the national average, way above as well. 51.73%. Wow, no wonder. Do you wonder why there's a lot of poor people in New Mexico? And if you have that kid out of wedlock again and you dropped out of high school, guess what? Problems. But if we spend more on education and more on welfare, it'll solve the problem because it's getting better. As an aside, I think the people, I find it funny, people who have autistic fits over abstinence-only education. Number one, back in the 40s and 50s, you didn't have the federal government intruding in this area. And yet, most American families were intact, even black families. And today, it's gone the other way, and now they say abstinence doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work if you don't try it. Well, gosh, I tried abstinence and I had sex with 4 people over the last month and it just doesn't work. No, you're an idiot. Plus, it's a parental task. If you need some pervert in the public school system to tell your kids about the birds and the bees, maybe you shouldn't be having kids. Arizona average, all races, 45.1%. Arizona Hispanic, 56.6%. Arizona White, 30.5%. Arizona Black, 62.4%. Already went over Nevada in a previous video. They are above and beyond the national average as well, so they're excelling. I already went over Florida in a previous video. I believe it was Ever Wonder Why California is a Mess Part 2. See my videos on California. I chronicle all that. District of Columbia, we're going to mention them again. The District of Columbia is, I liken it to a giant toilet that hasn't been cleaned in 20, 30 years. They excel at STD infection rates. They excel in out-of-wedlock birth rates. They excel in homicide. And yet all this taxpayer money from 50 states is flowing in there, and it's still a dump. Imagine that. District of Columbia, all races, 50.8%. District of Columbia, Hispanic. I wonder whose fault this is. Is this white privilege? District of Columbia, Hispanic, 2010 through 2017, 61.2%. Just because you live in a poor neighborhood doesn't mean you need to have kids out of wedlock, because you're going to be confined there forever if that happens. And no amount of food stamps and Medicaid. You have to cure the human condition. And food stamps and Medicaid aren't going to cure the human condition of evil. Got a bunch of malcontents out there. District of Columbia Black, 2010 through 2017, 78.1% of all black children born out of wedlock. District of Columbia White, 5.7%. That must be white privilege. Covered Mississippi in a previous video. Ever wonder why Mississippi is a mess? 80.6% of blacks born out of wedlock there. Well over half of all kids. But Mississippi, that's a dumb southern state with them dumb white people who hate, are racist. They carried them Confederate flags around, and they're spitting the tobacco while they're carrying that Confederate flag. Well, it's bad in all ethnic groups, but blacks in Mississippi, 80.6%. Yeah, that's why a lot of them are poor. And if you live in a dumpy neighborhood, the last thing you want to do is have kids out of wedlock. Wow. Here's Rhode Island. This is a hillbilly Democrat state full of a bunch of white people there, but they're way above the national average, almost 45%. Rhode Island Black, 64.53%. That's actually low. Rhode Island Hispanic, 63.38%. That's high. Rhode Island White, 35, almost 36%. If you want to round it, way above the national average. So I got a bunch of white progressives in Rhode Island. South Carolina, here's another southern state. They're all racist because they're down south, and they give their electoral votes to dumb Republicans who are racist. South Carolina average, all races, 46.88%. South Carolina Black, 77.425%. 77.425% from 2010 to 2017. Can you believe that? Can you believe this? Look at, man, I'll cover this later. Doesn't matter if the state's got a high proportion of African Americans, low proportion. In a lot of states, it's out of control. Doesn't matter. South Carolina Hispanic, 50.4%. South Carolina white, 30.8%. West Virginia, average, another southern state. All races, 44.63%. West Virginia black, 74%. West Virginia Hispanic, 46.5%. West Virginia white, 43.65%. A lot of whites are in West Virginia having children out of wedlock, but the black rate is way above it again. It's just looking bad. I think that's why a lot of people, plus I, again, haven't looked at the high school dropout rate in West Virginia, but I'm sure their public schools are just, I'm sure they're great. Michigan average, black, 2010 through 2017. These are just states now where the overall, it's not an outlier, but you got one group that's really stands out. Michigan average, black. This is Detroit and Flint being represented mostly here. 80.21% of all blacks born out of wedlock in Michigan 2010 through 2017. That's why Detroit and Flint are dying. Wisconsin average black. This is Milwaukee mainly because Wisconsin is one of the whitest states. It's lily white, right up there with Vermont. Wisconsin average black 2010 through 2017, 84.1%. Ever wonder why some neighborhoods in Milwaukee are really bad? Fatherless children running wild. I know I'm such a Puritan for saying that, but it's not my fault. And again, marriage is important to these progressives, so they should be raising the alarm about this, but they're not because butthurt. And just because you get butthurt over someone speaking the truth doesn't mean you win. So you can stick your heads in the sand and say more food stamps, more Medicaid, more welfare. If you don't cure the human condition, nothing's going to change. And you can't reward people for irresponsibility forever. It's not my fault. I didn't cause it. Illinois average, black, 2010 through 2017, 79.5%. There's Chicago. Indiana average, black, 2010 through 2017, 78.75%. That's probably Gary, Indiana, and Indianapolis. 78.75%. Ohio average, black, 2010 through 2017, over 78%. Ohio average Hispanic, 2010 through 2017, 60.3%. Tennessee, another southern state that's racist, full of stupid, racist white people. Tennessee average black, 2010 through 2017. This is Memphis, represented here mostly, I would wager. 77.88%. Do you wonder why a lot of blacks in Tennessee are poor? It's not racist to speak the truth. Missouri average black, 2010 through 2017. Almost 77% of blacks born out of wedlock in Missouri, 2010 through 2017. 77%. This is deplorable. It's deplorable that Hillary Clinton doesn't call this out. But then again, she's got her finger in the air and focus grouping everything. Alabama average black, 2010 through 2017. 76.06%. Vermont average, white, 2010 through 2017. This is lily white Vermont, full of progressive white people who are enlightened because they're better than the dumb white people that vote Republican. Vermont average, white, 2010 through 2017, 40.4%. Well, if you're wondering why if you're wondering why a lot of white people in Burlington are dysfunctional and poor, it's because the families there are not intact. Maine average white. This is another state that trends Democrat, 2010 through 2017, 40.81%. Massachusetts average Hispanic, 61.675%. New York average Hispanic, 2010 through 2017, 63.8%. Pennsylvania average Hispanic, 2010 through 2017, almost 66%. Pennsylvania average black, 77.5%. Just to illustrate how bad this is, in 2017 alone, there were over 1.5 million, 1,533,901. 1,533,901 533,901 out-of-wedlock births in these United States. Of those, 388,979 were African American or black. 25.35% of all out-of-wedlock births in 2017 were African American or black. According to the Census Bureau, the U.S. population estimate was 327,167,434 on July 1st, 2018. 13.4% or 43,840,436 of the population was African American alone. The following states: Michigan, Nevada, Louisiana, Arkansas, South Carolina, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, West Virginia, Mississippi, D.C., Pennsylvania, Alabama, Missouri, Tennessee, Ohio. Those states have, according to the 2018 estimates, have 15,763,058 African Americans, or 35.9% of the entire African American population. These states had 171,850 African American out-of-wedlock births, which was 44.17% of all African American out-of-wedlock births in 2017. These states have diverse demographics. Some have much larger than average minority populations, and some have very small minority populations. Larger than average would be Louisiana and Mississippi. Small minority populations would be Wisconsin. In closing, we have an epidemic that most politicians, primarily those on the Democrat side, choose to either ignore, blame on someone else, or claim there is no problem at all. It's not white privilege, and as you can see, there are a few states that have a white out-of-wedlock problem, assuming that recent years are normal when they are far above what we saw in the 40s and 50s. It's not white privilege. It's not a conspiracy. It's a total lack of personal responsibility and a victimhood mentality. End the war on drugs. That would help. If there's a conspiracy and bias, that's where it's at. If you finish school, get established in your job, get married to a stable spouse, and then have the kids, all while avoiding the pitfalls of drug abuse, including alcohol, your chances for success are much greater. If you fail to finish high school, abuse drugs, have kids from a few sperm donors, and then expect the taxpayers to foot the bill, everyone ends up miserable. What used to be a family task has now become, because of economically illiterate politicians pandering for votes, a federal task. After trillions and trillions of welfare spending, cradle-to-grave entitlements and the like, America is experiencing an epidemic. America the irresponsible. The nuclear family is being annihilated, and entities like Black Lives Matter, Bernie Sanders et al. Place the blame on entrepreneurs when you are responsible for you. If you are a young woman, it is your responsibility to be very picky when it comes to men, because your livelihood may depend on it. Personal responsibility is an individual task, and a la Smokey the Bear, only you can prevent fragmented families and bad relationships. More welfare and more free health care won't cure the hardness and blackness of the human heart. Just as you cannot buy your way into heaven via an indulgence, you cannot buy success. Well, unless you're, maybe if you're an ethanol farmer. Well, unless you lobby, like Biden, Obama, and Hillary Clinton to vote for your TARP bill, then you can buy some respite with a load of taxpayer cash. And I kind of bungled that one, but oh well, we'll leave that in there. Have a nice day, and you have been warned.